Hello, everyone. So, I do apologize. Okay, sorry, had to swallow. Where is it? In the first video, I said for the second video, the previous one, I had talked about a book, two books. The one book I was talking about was Mrs. Kennedy and Me by Clint Hill. Special Agent, United States Secret Service. It's a short book. Pictures on the back. It says, to Clint Hill, with memories and my gratitude forever for all you did to make those years the happiest ones for President Kennedy and for me, Jacqueline Kennedy, Christmas 1966, inscribed in a copy of John F. Kennedy's Profiles in Courage book. I think he's still alive. Let me check for a second. Secret Service Agent Clint Hill.
According to North Dakota Governor's Office.
Okay. Clint Hill.
According to Wikipedia, Clinton J. Hill is a former U.S. Secret Service agent who served under 5 United States presidents, from Dwight D. Eisenhower to Gerald Ford.
He's still alive, born January 4th, 1932. He is 92 years old. He's written several books. 5 Days in November, Mrs. Kennedy and Me, 5 Presidents. I think I have one of those in my Kindle. But, no. Anyways, the other book that I was talking about, the Secret Service agent book, it's called, and I don't have a good picture of it. Okay, here you go. It's called, why would you be able to see it? It's called Within Arm's Length, a Secret Service Agent's Definitive Inside Account of Protecting the President. It's by Dan Emmett, E-M-M-E-T-T. It's 318 pages, it says. It's a short book, if you're interested in reading it. If you have an audio thing, 318 pages, it says it'll take you about 5 hours and 52 minutes. A lot longer for me. I'm not that fast. That's a speed reader to me. Okay, but those were the two things that I had forgotten to share with you at the end of the second video. And I want to share this. It's an Olipop Classic Grape. Why am I showing you? It's a new kind of soda. It supports digestive health. It's prebiotics, botanicals, and plant fiber. There is only 4 grams of sugar in this soda, but 9 grams of fiber. I've had a couple other ones. One was really, ginger ale was really good, surprisingly. And then another one that was This is grape. Really good. It tastes like, the initial flavor is like Concord grape. If you like Welch's grape juice, it's pretty much like that, except it's carbonated. So on this video, we're probably that's a 15-minute or 14-ish minutes. we'll either go to there, or I might take it here, and then we'll just break this down. Instead of 5 parts, it'll be 4. So if I take it here, I might. We'll see. If I talk a lot, we won't.
To fight for, to push for our rights legally and through quiet, through nonviolent resistance. So this is a huge place.
It's firing me up, dude.
Right?
This
country has
cool,
an
man.
incredibly romantic history. And there's another way to look at all of this, apparently, but this is the way that I was taught it, and I see it again as a story. So, but then after he'd been shot, and all that became rubble. Like that, all that was pushed aside, and now that we're in a fucking melee war, Nixon's president. It feels like forever. It just feels like Nixon's never not going to be president. He was a psychotic. He's taking drugs. He's drinking a lot. He was so racist. He was like, there's tapes of him saying about Italians. He's like, I don't like Italians. They smell different. He says that on tape. And
he was right.
Well, depends on if they've been cooking. But so Nixon. So the mall and the memorial is just besieged by strung out hippies, students, and veterans who came home from the war and hate the war now, and have Ron Kovic and all these guys in wheelchairs going, what the fuck did I do this for?
Yeah.
This certainly isn't World War II. What are we winning here? When is this war going to end? And it was just a mess. And in the middle of all that, in the middle of the night one night, Nixon got in his limo and drove into the middle of that. He went to the Lincoln Memorial. Do you know this?
No.
There's footage of this too. He was looking out his window. What are you fucking kids? The fuck do they know? But it was breaking his heart. Yeah. Because even though he had the hard hats, and even though he had the silent majority, just like now, nobody wants the silent majority. People want the cool people to like them. Twitter is like 39 people and 60,000 bots. It's very few people. It's a bunch of kids that are fighting and saying this extremist shit. And the huge, vast amount of the liberal part of this country is not into any of that. But
side note, I noticed on my Twitter, I don't post a whole lot, but I do occasionally. And I'll go back and see liked comments that I made. And in one day, I had 5 likes on different things that I had said. 5 different women, all named Hannah. Now, isn't that odd? So I clicked on their name. It's basically just a glamour shot of a model. And it's like, hey, come visit me on my personal website. And it's just like, oh, okay, well, if that's not a porn site, then I don't know what that is. I don't click on it. I'm like, okay. Like, let's say I have 100 likes. I think 5 of them are actual people. The rest, I'm not saying that, but they're all bots. But you know what they're liking your thing, so you'll click on there. And, oh, they liked my comment, so let me check out their website. And next thing you know, you're like, uh-oh, it's not a website. This is a filth site.
Nobody's satisfied with just knowing that the average person gets it, and that when you really deal with human beings on a real level, they're going to do the right thing. I believe that. I have a lot of confidence in human and American, just the way we are as people. But these folks that yell and scream, they really get people want them to like them. And so Nixon, even though he was winning by a landslide everywhere, he's looking out that window and he's looking at those kids, because it's your kids. It's like if everybody likes you, but your kids think you're a piece of shit, it just eats at you. It just destroys you. And so he got in the limousine, and he drove into the middle of the protesters, and he got out and he talked to them. And there's just this footage of him talking. He's in his stupid suit. And they're like, man, you don't get, man, you're just you're like an imperialist piece of shit, man. And he's like, well, I understand your point, but I mean, do you just think we just give up? I mean, what happened to this country? And they talked. They really talked. I don't know what it did to him, but he did get us out of that war.
You ever see?
Nixon did pull us out of that war. Now, he did it in a way that is horrible, which is that he bombed
Cambodia.
And this is the story that I heard, is that he had this very specific strategy, which was he starts bombing Cambodia, which came out of nowhere. It was like, what? And then he let it be.
But wasn't Cambodia was where they had the Ho Chi Minh Trail, right?
I don't know.
I think they knew they could use Cambodia. Like, they were using these trails in other countries.
Right,
I believe,
but still,
it
was a
wrong.
country we had no right.
Yeah.
We were not at war with Cambodia, but we were bombing Cambodia as if it would be like if people were escaping to Canada and we were like, so fuck it. Or if Canadians were at war and some of them escaped into the States and whatever the other country was, just started bombing fucking Wisconsin. Like, dude, you can't just do that.
Yeah.
And so many people were getting killed. And Nixon, what he did is he let it be leaked that no one could get in touch with him, like that his aides were trying to tell him to stop bombing, and that he cut off communication, and was that he wanted them to think he'd gone cuckoo. And that's how they got the Vietnamese to the table and got a peace. It wasn't a good peace. They left.
Oh, he faked that he was nuts?
That's what I heard.
That's good.
I don't know.
Well, that's
Reddit,
history. That's how you hear history.
Google, I don't know.
But it's another thing about the Vietnam. I feel like Eisenhower, when he left, was like the military-industrial complex. That was Vietnam.
Yes.
That was, and that got us to now. I was like, oh, now we pulled out of Afghanistan. Where are these guys going to get their money?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, $33 billion to Ukraine. Like,
well,
it's just
exactly.
nonstop.
Well, that's
it's
the
nonstop.
other side. You have your like political left that has more power than they do people, right?
Yeah.
Because they're captivating people's like anxiety. But then on the other right, you have all these people that are doing fucked up things.
Yeah.
That also are untouchables. And there are only a few people with just a little bit of interest, a little bit of money, and so they're making all this crazy stuff happen.
That's jumping ahead.
I don't know much about it, but anyway. But so Nixon,
but it seems to me if you speak out against it, you get shot in the head or Watergated.
Yes,
which is kind of what's happened. I could be wrong.
Yes,
that seems to be the underlying theme. Like, he got out of that war, and then
they
couldn't shoot him in the head.
I don't believe in conspiracies, but what I do believe is that there is a shift in the hive mind of America, so that if certain people that get in a position where they're in trouble, like Nixon did, the next person he goes to is going to be like, nah, man. Like, you don't know where it's going to come from.
Yeah.
Like the story I heard about Caligula. Caligula was a terrible leader who was an absolute leader because everybody behind him had built the emperorship of Rome into a huge thing. You couldn't touch the emperor. He was like a god.
Yeah.
And Caligula made himself a god.
And then a crazy guy took.
He was insane. Caligula was insane. And
did he have his horse in the Senate, or was that
he
Nero?
made his horse in Senate?
That's pretty sick.
And so Caligula, one of the emperor's duties each day is to give the watchword to the head of the army, and the watchword is like the code word for the whole Roman army for the next week or whatever it is. So somebody asks him, "What do you want to be the code today?" And it was the head of the army, this guy who was like his bodyguard, and he thought it was funny, so he'd say, "Give us a kiss." He wanted everybody to have to say, "Give us a kiss," and so that all the Roman guards would have to say each other, "Give me a kiss," in order to like pass one guard to the next. And it was that guy that killed him.
Yeah, that guard.
It was that guard who was just like, fucking shivved him
just,
like the fucking American meat.
It is funny when those guys do get killed.
Yeah.
Anytime a dictator gets killed, I mean, it's sad.
Can you imagine if it was, "Please don't kill me"? The person heard it and they're like, draws a sword. No, I'm not going.
It's always sad to watch. Like, Gaddafi was sad.
It was really sad.
Gaddafi was sad.
Yeah, he's just with the blood.
Yeah.
And
Saddam
people
was
hanging.
Screaming.
Some guys are screaming, and he looks at one of them and he goes, "Shut up." It's true. You see him coming and he's grumpy. He's like, this is such bullshit. He's not like, oh, that's what everyone's fantasy is. He's like, oh, I wish I had.
Yeah.
But he just comes in and some guy screams
and
he goes, "Shut up."
Just
and
a room of dudes yelling.
Kick the bench away and he hung.
He must have been so pissed on 9/11.
Yeah.
He probably was watching TV just like, oh,
you guys, that's going to be me.
them.
Okay. So,
Nixon. I don't know shit about Ford or Carter.
okay. So Nixon resigns. I will resign the presidency.
So wait, I don't even understand Watergate.
So Watergate was it started as a very simple thing, which was there's some guys that Nixon had a committee, the committee to reelect the president, which is CREEP. CREEP was literally their acronym. So CREEP sent some burglars to the Democratic National Committee's office, which was in Watergate Hotel. Watergate Hotel is in like a complex of office buildings. And they stole some papers from there. And this kind of shit was happening a lot. But Nixon was on drugs, paranoid, had a list of enemies. He just went. His thing came apart. Is really what happened.
Yeah.
These guys took some papers. It wasn't a big deal, but he immediately tried to control it because he was like, we're quashing this, we're killing this, right?
Yeah.
And somebody said, well, we got this guy. If he talks, we're all fucked. And Nixon says, what does he want? And they have them on tape. Somebody says he'll do it for $1 million, and he says, can we get the $1 million? And it's Nixon saying that was like the smoking gun. Was like, we'll give him the $1 million if he wants it. Like,
He's like, well, give him $1 million. What are you even talking about?
If you're president, you can't say that out loud. It's crazy. But he had too much. He wasn't delegating enough, and so one by one, the investigative reporters at the time were really diligent, and they turned against a lot of pressure. They turned guy after guy after guy down until finally they got the guys close to him, and he didn't have. He knew
is the guy they were going to pay is that Deep Throat?
Yes,
that's the.
Well, no, no.
Is that just?
Sorry, I just want to add. I don't know a whole. Once we get into the newer people, I don't know as much because this is more current to me, and I'm like more before. It's not going to stop me from eventually learning more about them. But Nixon, to me, I think wise was one of the smartest presidents we've ever had. I think from the standpoint of I don't know much about his history. But I told you the story about him in public with his wife in the Secret Service, honking the horn, and him and his wife interrupting that moment. I think that he was very distrusting for whatever reason. Not distrusting. Distrusting and paranoid kind of comes to mind. But then again, I didn't live in that time, so I can't tell you what he went through on a day-to-day thing. And he was in that debate with JFK where Kennedy had alluded that he wasn't going to wear makeup, and then Kennedy alluded he wasn't going to wear makeup, and then he did. And Nixon heard he wasn't going to wear makeup, so he didn't. And Nixon looked like a sweaty fool. And Kennedy didn't. And so I think, you've got that where you've been made to look like a fool in public. And you just, I don't know. We don't know what's going on in people's head when they do things, say things, act out. Is it coming from something that's happened to them before, or is it just paranoia? This happened to someone sometime, so I know it's going to happen to me. And you're like, really? But I think that he was just, with that time, just and I'm saying this leading up to the Watergate as to why he would have done it. I think that he just was someone that, and yeah, I don't know how to word it, but I think by me not knowing how to word it. I think you understand. He was just, yeah, I don't know how to phrase it. But I have seen the video of him getting out and talking to those kids. And for that, I salute you, because how many presidents would do that? Not many. But he did. He honestly did care about why they were protesting. Why did they care so much about, the opposite side? He tried to understand them. And I'm not going to say it was a shouting match, but clearly it's the president versus all these people that were there, and they were just like, "You're not listening, man. You're doing this, man." And to those people, I would say, understand your moment in history. Don't sit there, "You don't know, man." The president went out of his way to go to where you were and to talk to you. You could at least be a little, even if you don't like that person, you don't have to be disrespectful to them in that moment, because Nixon wasn't being disrespectful to them. So Nixon is he's flawed. He has a lot of flaws, and unfortunately, I think that he let those flaws become the character that people now view him as, instead of being kind of maybe who he was. But maybe that's who he always was. I honestly just don't know. I don't know enough about him. But I do remember, I think it was 1994 when he died. And I remember I remember hearing that he died. And I think in my lifetime, that was the first president that I knew had died. And I remember coming home from school one day at lunch, because I used to come home and eat lunch at home. And they had his body laying in the coffin, laying in state, and people were visiting it. And I just remember I'm sitting there, I was captivated by it. I didn't know much about him, didn't really care. I was 13, 14, so I didn't care, so much. But I just remember just like, wow, a president of the United States is dead. Like it wouldn't happen to everyone else, you know what I mean? But it really stuck with me. And now, even now, I wish I could go back in that moment and just really appreciate it, because to me, he was the guy who resigned from a scandal. And now I look at him differently. He was a flawed person, just like all of us. All of us are flawed in one way or another. It's just how much of those flaws do you allow other people to see? How many can you control? And in a moment like that, he lost that ability. Unfortunately.
Throat is a guy who was in the system, who just who saw everything that was going on, and was leaking it. It's just one of the dumb burglars, one of the guys, and there was this guy G. Gordon Liddy involved, who was a weird CIA guy.
It's so good.
His finger over a candle and burn it, and fucking psycho.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, Liddy was a great guy to look up. G. Gordon Liddy. So Nixon knew that if they impeached him, they had the votes. That's another time where things were. I want to go back because there's a guy I remembered now, which is one of my not countrymen but citymen from Boston is Tip O'Neill. Tip O'Neill was the Speaker of the House.
Yeah,
Tip O'Neill was the guy I was telling you about that was the Speaker of the House when Reagan was in office, and I couldn't think of his name. Tip O'Neill was the guy who went back and forth, would just blast Reagan about him being worthless. He wasn't even good as a governor. And then would call him on the phone and be like, Dad, did you hear what I said? Now, he wouldn't exactly say that, but he would call Reagan like, hey, are we golfing tomorrow, or are we going to have dinner tonight? And Reagan would be like, I did catch what you said. And he's like, did you appreciate it? Like Tip O'Neill was a politician from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then was back to, the politics were different then. Now you're supposed to hate the other side.
Many, many years. And he was speaker, I think, during Nixon, but he was during Kennedy. So he was a Boston politician, and so was Kennedy. And I was just going to tell you this one story about Tip O'Neill. No. So Tip was worked with Kennedy in Boston for years, and there was some shifty guy named Patty O'Brien or something, some shifty Irishman who would, every time they had like a big banquet or something, he'd always get in there and be like, hey, how you doing, Tip? And he's like, how does Patty O'Brien get in everything? And he was at Kennedy's inaugural, Tip, and he was Speaker of the House, so he was really close to the front.
Yeah.
But Patty O'Brien had better seats than him, and he saw Kennedy walking up to take his speech, and Patty threw his hand up and he saw Kennedy look at him.
How the fuck are you here?
And a year later, he was at some big event for Kennedy, and they were showing footage from him and not taking the oath of office. And he asked Kennedy, "What were you thinking when you were becoming the president?" And he said, I got to be honest with you, I was thinking, how the hell did Patty O'Brien get those seats?
That's awesome.
Tip O'Neill wrote a book called Man of the House that's fucking so entertaining because it covers all these guys that he served with. Okay, Nixon. So he's
out.
Gerald Ford is a really weird president.
Yeah.
Because he didn't want to be president.
He was
ever.
just Nixon's vice president.
He wasn't even just Nixon's vice president. He was the Senate Majority Leader.
Oh.
He was just a senator from Michigan with no interest in being a fucking president.
Who was Nixon's VP?
Spiral Agnew.
And he got ousted.
He got thrown out because he was a fucking crook.
Yeah, he was with him.
They got rid of Agnew and they're like, just get Ford. I think Ford just filled in. He had no, and he was like, what? I'm vice president? I don't want to be fucking vice president.
That came out of nowhere, too.
And yes, out of nowhere, suddenly he's vice president. And now suddenly he's the fucking president.
Yeah.
So now he's the president of the fucking Republican Party, and Nixon. This is just a massive trauma to the country, and I remember it. I remember Nixon, and Watergate was like a huge part of my youth. Now, when I grew up, when I was a kid, I lived in Mexico, and from when I was, I know, like I'm aware that that's like not
Pennsylvania
cool.
crushes Mexico.
Yes.
You guys are dying to get to PA, dude.
Yes.
We occasionally go down there.
Yes.
And get sunburned.
That's right.
All right. So you're down in Mexico.
I'm in Mexico. And I moved. I was a baby when my parents moved to Mexico. My dad's Mexican. And then my parents, when I was about 7, moved to Boston, outside of Boston. And I remember coming to America. I remember my first memories were in Mexico in the 70s. So you think Mexico's bad now. In the 70s, it was like my mom only made carnation milk with powder because the milk was always rotten because there was no refrigeration, was just not good. It was a hot place. It was also beautiful. My memories are very beautiful from Mexico and still are. It's a wonderful country.
Yeah, of course.
Which is, and the thing is, they work really hard there. But their government is crazy corrupt and always has been. Like Mexico could be Japan with different organizations. Yeah. Like that's how hard they work and for how many hours. But so I lived in Mexico when I was a kid. And then we moved to America, and coming to America, which was like this shiny country full of cheerful people where all the floors are straight, like it's right angles, air conditioning, and just a cleanness and an honesty, and the idea that when they told me about like the president, like that it's a democracy. Mexico was a democracy, but everybody knew it was corrupt. And I got obsessed with the idea of the president of the United States. That's where it became a thing to me. And the president at the time was Nixon. And I cut a picture out of him out of the paper, and I taped it up next to
Nixon?
my bed. Yes, I loved Richard Nixon. When I was a little kid, I was so about Richard Nixon. And I wrote a letter to my abuelita, my grandmother.
Yeah.
And I sent her a picture of Nixon and said, "This is the president of the United States. He's the greatest
fucking
greatest man in the country.
He's so cool.
He's the best man." I didn't know a single thing about him. And he had this serious face. And I had a dream. It's the first dream I remember. I don't know if you remember dreams from when you were a kid at all. You ever had a dream that you still remember?
I'm not sure that I do.
So I remember one dream. I
have a nightmare that I remember when I was a kid. Sorry, Louis, I'm going to cut you off here. Oh, I already went past where I said I was going to go past, didn't I? Did I? No, I didn't. Yes, I did. I'm going to go here. No, I was going to go to here. Yeah, because it was 37 minutes. That's right. I was going to go there if I didn't talk a whole lot, but I decided to go here. On the next video, the next series, if you want me to do it and they cover Bill Clinton, I have a Bill Clinton letter. Not a, he didn't actually handwrite it like, "Dear Kris, hi, how you doing?" None of that. But I got an official, you know what? You're doubting me, aren't you? I know it. I hear it. Be right back. Okay. So I was looking for something, and I found something else. I gotta cover a little area. See that? That's me. Not the car. I was in that car. I was December 8th, 1999, I was front page of a small newspaper. A sports utility vehicle driven by Christopher Stanton, 20, rolled over after a possible malfunction of brakes. The driver was treated at a Peoria hospital and released and later died of his injuries. That part I added. Did not die of my injuries. But I was front page. Forgot all about that. But I have to, you'll understand, I have to cover up the old address. But that's my name. You can see Kris Stanton, right? From the White House in Washington. You're like, what are you doing, Kris? No, I'm covering up my name and address. The White House, February 1st, 2000. At the very bottom, signed by Bill Clinton. Not actually signed, it's like a printed thing. Dear Kris, thank you so much for your kind message. I'm grateful for the words of encouragement and support I've received from people across our country and around the world. As my administration continues the work of moving America forward, I hope you will stay involved in the issues that affect us as individuals and as a nation. Best wishes, sincerely. The White House, even the little seal right there, which you can make out. You can see it's like a stamped feel. After I did that, the response was, do you want a return thing? And I was like, yeah, I do. Now, I did this let's say I did it in like September, October of 99. I did it online, completely forgot all about it. All of a sudden, my mom, she goes, is there any reason why there was a letter from the White House? And I'm like, from the White House? She goes, yeah, what did you do? And I'm like, well, first off, if I broke the law, why would the White House be talking to? Wouldn't the police? And then I open up the letter, open it up, and I'm like, oh, it's just Bill Clinton getting back to me. And my mom's like, what? I mean, it's very cool to receive a letter from the White House, and it's something that I wanted to do every presidential thing. And after Clinton was George W. Bush, so I filled out a thing to send it, and they were like, do you want a digital copy back? And I was like, no, I wanted an actual letter. I wanted a physical letter in the mail, because that means more to me than just an email. You know, the paper, the letter, everything. And they didn't offer it, and I didn't do it. But it's something I wish I actually did now, because I could have printed it off. But it's not the same. You know, getting an actual hard letter is vastly different than getting a, you know. But anyways, I was going to wait until the Bill Clinton thing, but you doubted me. So there you go.
And my bedroom was in the front of our house, so you looked out at the front of our house, and I was asleep, and it was like a Sunday morning, and I heard a band, like a marching band, and I looked outside, and it was Nixon, like walking up my street, just no spectators.
Yeah.
Just him walking up, followed by a marching band, boom, 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 and I came out on the front yard. We had this walkway, and he got down on one knee and he said, "Louis," and I ran into his arms.
What the fuck? Damn, you love Nixon.
I loved him so much.
Damn.
Isn't that crazy? I've never told anybody that. Do you know that? I've never told anybody that in my life. And so,
since he's talking about dreams, the dream that I had was in this place where I grew up. It was these condos, and for whatever reason, I was looking out my bedroom window, out the condo, out the bedroom, my bedroom window. And there was this tree. Tree's still there today. In this tree, you know how sometimes the tree branches, you'll be like, oh, that looks like a figure, or that looks like a whatever. This tree, when it swayed in the wind, this is a dream. When it swayed in the wind, it looked like a bear in like overalls, in a canoe. And I'm just in the dream, I'm looking out, and he's looking at me, and he's paddling. And I remember like hiding from the window, like, oh my goodness, the boogeyman. And then I looked, and the tree was closer, and I thought, oh no. I hid, I peek out again. The tree is back where it was. He ain't in the tree. And then I look, and he's in a different tree, closer to my house. And he's looking up at me, and I'm just like, oh no. And I do that. And then I peek out again, and he's not there. And I'm like, oh no. And I look down, and right underneath my window was the back door to go in and out to the backyard. I look down, and this time it was an actual bear in blue overalls, and he's looking up at me, and then he looks straight ahead, and then he just darts in the house, and I can hear him running around, and then I hear him running up the steps, And it was like 2 steps and a landing, and then you turn and you went up more steps. And he's running up the steps, and he makes it to the top of the steps, and then I can hear him taking these slow steps and the creaks. And I'm in my bedroom, and my bedroom, for whatever reason, didn't have a door. And then, and I was just going, please, please, please don't hurt me. Please don't hurt me. And the more I said it, I could hear, and a hand grabbed the side of the door casing, and his head popped around, and I woke up. So the grizzly bear in a canoe was coming to get me. That's the dream I'll never forget.
Louis.
Like, senor.
Oh, and it's funny. There's only
senor.
the idea of his joy, because Nixon was such a miserable man that his joyful side was very rare. There's only one time I've ever seen it on film, and it's when he's playing piano. He's in a tuxedo, and I think he's at his daughter's wedding. And he was a concert pianist. He was very good. And he's playing piano, and he plays some big crescendo, and he's got this big dumb grin on his face. And I think maybe I had seen that because that's the only, that grin, every time I see it, I'm in that dream. So, but my parents saw that I had these pictures of him next to my bed, and they were like, he's not a good
He's not
guy.
that great.
He's not, because Watergate was happening. And every night, my parents were sitting in front of the TV, this little fucking color TV, watching Watergate, watching the hearings. And it was like, shh.
And you're
it
like,
was
how's
serious.
it going?
Yeah, I'm like, how's my boy going?
How's he doing?
Yeah. I'm like, fucking Ed Muskie, fuck you.
And they're like, he's crying. He's on TV crying. You're
Yes.
like, shh.
Yeah, and then I remember watching live. There's the 2 things I remember that were like national events. I remember Walter Cronkite saying that America and Russia had just done something called Apollo Soyuz. We had Apollo spacecraft going around, and they had Soyuz capsules. And one night they met, like they saw each other. It was an accident. And they thought, what if we could dock? So they went home and they started this project, Let's Dock. This is back in the 70s, in the middle of the Cold War. So they built a dock, and they had to do it together.
Yeah.
The Russian and the American space program. And then they went up in 2 separate rockets, found each other in the middle of space, and docked, and then drank vodka and shook hands and hung out.
Christ.
And Walter Cronkite told me on tells the only one up watching TV, and he said, if the Apollo Soyuz capsules are flying over North America, and if it's clear where you are in the Northeast, if you look up, you might see them passing overhead. And I went outside and I laid on my on the grass for hours, and I saw. He said it would be a red light and a white light blinking together. And
you
I
see
saw
it?
them. Saw it.
Oh man.
So that's
also a great example of why, like the Cold War, when governments dislike each other. Prime example. Right now, the U.S. is with Israel, Palestine, and all that stuff. But the U.S. is in the Red Sea trying to keep trade open. And is it Houthis? Is that how you pronounce them? They say they're Iranian-backed. And so they did a strike in Iraq, which is funny because he just said, talking about Nixon attacking, if Canadians went in and another country bombed Wisconsin. So Iranian-backed Houthis in Iraq, and we just struck them yesterday or overnight. The U.S. and Iran don't like each other. The governments hate each other. I have, on my channel, I've seen someone say, from Iran. And then they've said stuff. And nothing negative. They liked the video that I did. And it just goes to show you that politicians and governments may hate each other, but I don't know who that person is. Like, I may hate that person's leadership, as you might hate my country's leadership. But me as a citizen, and you as a citizen, I don't hate you. I have no contempt for you at all, because you haven't done anything to me. If you were to show up at my house and just say, hey, how you doing? and just hit me in the face and be like, well, that was a trip definitely worth it. And then you just walked off, I'd be like, well, I hate that guy. He hit me. He punched me. He showed up here and I would certainly applaud your dedication to fly here just to hunt me down and right in the face and just leave. I'd be like, where'd you come from? Why'd you do that? I came from Iran. I mean, I can't get mad at that. That's dedication. Like, but it just goes to show with that space station, those two countries that supposedly hate each other at that time did that because they don't care. They don't have the hatred that their country says that they should have. And I think that's very important for all countries, U.S. involved, to not just react and hate another country. I may hate, when I say I dislike a country, clearly I'm talking about, the president or this or that. But the people had nothing to do with it. And I think that's an important thing to always remember. If you dislike a country, you're only disliking the leadership, the 1, 2, 10 people. If you don't like Biden, you don't like Trump, you hate America because of them, just remember, then you hate me, and I didn't do anything to you. So, that's just something that I always try to tell myself also. 9/11 happened. A lot of them were Saudi Arabia is where they came from. I don't hate Saudi Arabia. They're just rogue people that did what they did. I always try to keep that in mind because when my news will show me people burning the American flag and chanting death to the U.S., death to the U.S., I have to believe that is a rogue few. Just like you would see here, people protesting saying, they don't like the Palestinians or they don't like the Israelis or they don't. It's a small subsection. And you just have to try to remember that. It's not everywhere. If they said every single person in America was protesting today, I can tell you I wasn't. Because it's just not how it works. We're almost done with this video, and I do apologize.
And watching Nixon resign.
How pumped were you?
With the Apollo Soyuz thing, I mean, still, it lives for me. And Nixon's resignation was just like a depressing, destroying, sad, fucked up thing. It was just like, what now? Like there was like an unbroken chain.
Yeah.
From George Washington to him. Like if you go back, like LBJ notwithstanding, and everyone was proud of what he did with civil rights or whatever, there was an unbroken chain, even if you're fucking Democrat, Republican, Whig Democrat or whatever, Whig Republic, all of those, it was still the U.S. president. And then this guy fucking dropped the motherfucking ball. It's crazy. In disgrace, he left the office and left a mess of just like, this is all bullshit now. This is just all fucking crooked bullshit. What is the point? And the economy was tanking. And then here's Gerald Ford, who was just a kind of like oval-headed, simple dude. He made little moves. He handled it perfectly. I mean, he did one thing that was extremely, extremely unpopular and fucked up, which is that he pardoned Richard Nixon.
All right. Getting into Ford. We're going to go back. Okay. So we're going to end it there. And then the next video will be 20 minutes. And we'll end it. I had an apple in between these videos. And I can feel apple in my beard. I can taste it. So I need to wash my beard because I got apple juice right here. Okay. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed seeing the picture of my car. I love that car. Didn't have it very long. I'm driving to work. And it was a bunch of cars. And I'm going on along. In the article, it says I was wearing a seatbelt. I was not. It was 99. And so, was it 99? December 8th, 1999. Yep. Well, that was when this came. So this would have been December 7th. December 7th. A day that will live in infamy. Pearl Harbor be damned. That was the day that I got into a car accident. What's more important? Clearly my car accident. But I'm alive. I made it through. Japan tried to take me down. Not successful. But I'm going to work, and the road kind of dips down. And as it went down, and it kind of, the car went, and I just started losing speed. And I was in like 3-4 car going, and I was doing like 65. I was speeding. Everyone was. And my car just went, and just started losing speed. And I'm kind of looking around like, what is going on? So I touched the brake, just to kind of touch the brake and then to touch the gas. And because I had my foot on the gas when it just started losing. And so I was going to hit the brake to pull over to kind of see. And I touched the brake. And as soon as I did, all 4 tires locked up. And the car just went. It skidded. It was bouncing. And then the steering wheel went. And my hands were on it. Because I'm like, what is happening? And the whole car turned, rotated, and spun around and went into the ditch on the opposite lane facing this way. And the whole thing was in slow motion. I'm sitting there, and as it starts to rotate and turn, I feel the door part of the inside part of the door pushing against my head, and I'm like, what is happening? And the change that I had did like the Matrix. It like floated up and then just went and just started flying at me, and I'm like, and then I'm just sitting there, and I look up, and I'm sitting in the passenger side back seat. I'm looking up at the passenger side back seat, and I look straight ahead, and the hatchback glass, it was a Jeep Cherokee, old Jeep Cherokee, had broken in, so there was some glass around my shoes. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm looking around, and I said out loud, what the hell just happened? The whole thing felt like it took 2 minutes. Didn't. Probably took less than 2 seconds. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm reaching around, and I grab my cell phone, or mobile phone as we used to call them, and I tried to make a call, and my thing went, it wouldn't dial through. At that moment, I heard a woman say, oh my God, they're dead, they're dead. And another woman is like crying. My phone didn't go through. I hear that. So I open up the door, and I say, I'm okay. I'm alive. Everything's fine, I think. Maybe. I don't know. And I go crawling out, and as I did, there was this guy that had pulled over. By the way, the truck, red truck behind me, I don't know who you are, sir, but I hope you got gout and had to have a toe removed, because that guy was kind of like, burp, 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 burp. I don't got time to stop. I got to go to work. Like that, I don't know who that guy was. He didn't care if I lived or died. Didn't even stop. The lady behind him did. So I come crawling out. There was a guy coming over the hill and just witnessed the whole thing. So he pulled off the road, half off, so, and he had his hazards on so cars wouldn't hit me. But I'm crawling out, and I tell those ladies, I'm okay. And I crawl out, and I sit on this, it was a pull-in to like a little cornfield. And I sit on that, and the guy goes, yeah, you just have a seat, bud. I don't know if you have any internal injuries or whatnot, so let's just take it easy. I was like, no, I'm good. I look up, those 2 ladies are driving away. And I look at him, and I go, were they crying? And he's like looking at them drive away, and he goes, yeah. They were standing in the middle of the road, like acting. Like, I'm not saying they were acting, but they were like, oh, good God, he's dead. He's dead. No, he's alive. All right. They got in the car and left. They didn't even come up to me. They didn't even ask me anything. Didn't ask me if I was okay. Didn't even speak to me. They were like, oh, good God, he's dead. Oh, what are we going to do? I'm surprised they didn't just go, ugh, and then say, oh, go F yourself, and then flip me off and spit. Because that's what it felt like. So the other guy, he's standing behind me. Here's the best part. I'm sitting on this ravine, and I'm just looking at my car, and I'm just a couple feet away from my car. I could have reached out and touched it. I'm just looking at my car, and all I'm thinking of is, what the hell just happened? This guy comes over and puts his hand on my head and does this, like I was his goddamn pet. It's okay. You're gonna be fine. And I'm like, that is very, you don't want that. It's very emasculating. Looking back on it, it would have been really funny if I would have started doing that leg with the dog, like where they just start, start getting that scratch going. The leg just starts beating. I should have done that, but clearly I wasn't funny enough at the moment to think of it. I was too like, what just happened? And then I made a phone call. Called my mom. She calls her dad, my grandpa. He comes out, and of course my grandpa shows up. I'm in a cop car going over. The cop says to me, thank you, Mr. Kenny Dyson, I think was his name. He's just like, yeah, what happened? And I tell him, and he goes, you were sitting on the roof. And I said, yeah. And he goes, after you undid your seatbelt, you fell under the roof, right? And I go, no, I wasn't wearing my seatbelt. And he goes, and I was looking down. I go, no, I wasn't wearing my seatbelt. And I'm like looking down, and I was starting to get, my adrenaline was starting to wear off. So like, I'm doing this, and I'm like, no, I wasn't wearing a seatbelt. And he took his thing, and he put down his paperwork on the dash, and he goes, son, look at me. And I like looked at him, and he goes, I'm going to ask you again, and I want you to think about the answer. When the car flipped upside down, you were wearing your seatbelt, and then you unclicked it and were able to get out, right? And I'm looking at him like, oh, yeah, no, yeah, right. I was wearing my seatbelt. And he goes, takes his paperwork, he goes, that's all I was asking. He was wearing his seatbelt. Otherwise, he'd had to give me a ticket. He just wanted to go over everything, make sure our stories were the same. So, but the best part is, I'm sitting in there talking to them. Ambulance comes up and they're like, do you want to go to the hospital? I'm like, I don't think I need to. I felt fine. And the cop goes, your adrenaline's wearing off right now. As soon as it's done, you might start feeling some bumps and bruises and stuff like that. So I can't force you, but I do recommend that you go to the hospital. And I was like, all right, that's fair. I went to get out of his car, because the ambulance is right there. I went to get out of the car to help them to stand up, and then they could do that. As soon as I said, yes, I want to go to the hospital, he said, sit back in your chair, put your arms on your lap, do not move. And I'm just like, what? He goes, don't move. Ambulance opens up the door. They open up the back seat. They put a brace around my neck. I knocked my earbud out. They put a brace around my neck, and with the cops' help, they're like moving me out so they can pick me up. And I'm sitting there, and I go, guys, like, I'm not that hurt. I can just get out and just climb up onto the little I almost said bed, the little stretcher, the gurney, whatever you want to call it. And they go, no. Once you've said you're going to go to the hospital, we have to verify that you did not take any extra risks, that precautions were taken. so that if you do have anything, you're not making it worse. And I was like, okay. It took him 10 minutes to get me out of the car. I'm just sitting in there. It took me 10 minutes to get me out, to lay me flat, to hold me up, and then put me on the stretcher. And then, but as this is all happening, my grandpa shows up and immediately walks to the car and starts yelling, Kris! Christopher! Where are you? And then he's looking around, and everyone's like looking at him, and then they're looking over here to where I am, and they're looking back at him, and my grandpa, R.I.P., he's looking off into this field going, did he take off running? Where is he? And it's like, I'm over here, Grandpa. I can't say anything. And he looks over and he goes, oh, I thought that was somebody else. Yeah, it was somebody else in a car accident. Just right near my car accident. That's what it was, Grandpa. So I ended up going to the hospital. Got looked over. They gave me some ibuprofen. Great little side note. Maybe telling a little more than I should. But, you know, that's what I do. My dad showed up. And both of my sisters. One sister works in a hospital. So she was already working at that hospital, and they came up to her and they're like, just, no, everything's fine. Your brother was in a car accident. He's in the hospital. My sister was like, just took off. So she went down to the emergency room area. They're all sitting in there, and I'm talking to them, and I was like, yeah, I'm explaining what happened. And then this doctor comes in, and he's talking to him, and he goes, can I have everyone leave the room? I'm going to do an examination. And my one sister knew what that meant. My other sister kind of knew what that meant. My dad knew what it meant. They all get up and leave. They're like, all right, we'll be outside. Talking to the doctor. And he's like, yeah, I want to, make sure nothing hurts. Make sure there's no pain. I was like, okay. Kind of weird that he's putting on a rubber glove just on one hand, right? Okay. Kind of weird that this guy's he's going to put some kind of gel lubricant on his finger. Don't know why you'd need to do that if you're going to check my neck, check my shoulder. I need you to lay on your side and pull your pants down a little bit. And I'm like, it's kind of weird. I don't know how that's going to help my back if my back hurts, or my neck, or my fingers, my arm. He grabbed a butt cheek. He gave me a prostate check that I did not know was coming. And it makes it worse to know that in the end I was diddled by he wasn't even a real doctor. He was an intern doctor. I got fingered in the butt cheeks by a guy who wasn't quite yet a doctor. And the worst part is he looked like Philip Seymour Hoffman from Boogie Nights. Now, if you don't know that reference, you need to look it up. You want to kiss me on the mouth? It's a great movie, by the way. Yep. I got anally checked. And then he left. Didn't even have the consideration to clean the gel out of my butt. No, I had to do that. And then my sisters and my dad came walking back in, all smiles. They loved every minute of it. So it's a random thing I like to tell people, especially if they just meet me. I'm like, yeah, let me tell you the story of when I was fingered by an intern doctor. Oh. Okay. It's fun times. Fun times. Wouldn't have thought of that until now. Fun times. All right, so I'm going to end this video here. And this has been another long one. Sorry. Nothing related to presidents. So, there's a... what's that? I don't know what that is. I got glue on me or something. So, there's a thanks button. You can donate to the channel. You don't have to. All donations are appreciated. You can subscribe to the channel and give a thumbs up. That really does help. Oh, and there's a bell button. Click on that. It notifies you whenever I do things. Like if I roam the streets at night and I murder prostitute dogs, it'll tell you, I think. I don't know. If I take the garbage out, it might notify you. I don't know how these things work, all right? I'm just supposed to tell you about it. And until next time, for part 4, you have a good day, have a good night.